So I'm going to say good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. And happy November, right? Is this just the craziest? The year is flying by. I can't believe it. And as you all know, we saw what happened with the verdict, which was quite shocking. So we're just going to jump on in and start talking about it. There's a lot of things to unpack here. And I'm going to first start by saying, it sounds a little weird, but it's not really all bad for us. Actually, there's, in my opinion, some really good things for Sotheby's with this. So first of all, anybody on the virtual town hall with that aura gave? Nobody. There is a recording that has been sent to you. You can also get it off of Aura's website. I'd be happy to share it with everybody. It was a great virtual town hall. They had 3 key speakers. One was from Stellar, the head of Stellar, Mary Jo, she's great. One was Joanna Watkins, obviously our head of legal counsel for Florida Realtors. And the third was Brad, our head economist for Florida Realtors. So really great speakers. So if you have some time, it's about an hour long, put it on while you're doing other things. Really important information. They talked all about this, and unbelievably so, it came out the day before the verdict. So although it talks about it, it doesn't address it head on because, of course, they didn't know what was going to happen with the verdict at that time. So it's interesting, but it's very, very informative. Now, being part of the board of directors, I've known things that I could not share because of fiduciary. So obviously, I've been trying to prepare you guys all along. Also being part of the MLS Advisory Council, we've been talking about things, trying to prepare. These lawsuits, guys, and there's going to be copycats, right? We've already seen them. There's already copycats going on. And, it's funny because I was this weekend in Boca getting my doggie because she was down there while we were in, with my in-laws while we were in California. And it's interesting because my in-laws are very educated people. My father-in-law was a bond broker for many years. My mother-in-law is a CPA, and their take on what's happening was interesting. So I'd like you to start talking to people that you know and get their takes on what's happening. Nobody understands this, okay? And it's very funny. Who do you think is going to win in this lawsuit? Anybody? No. The attorneys. Okay, it's a class action lawsuit, guys. Anybody been involved in a class action lawsuit? You got like what, $50 if you're lucky? Right? Who's going to make the money? 1.8 billion, it's really 1.78, becomes what? $50 to the people, really. Let's be honest. It's the attorneys who make the money. And what I thought was so interesting was my father-in-law, who's a brilliant man, copycatting, well, the buyer's agents were making too much money. Guys, since the dawn of time, 1908, when the National Association of Realtors had come into existence, right? I'm sorry, have we not been set up this way where there's been one commission paid for by the seller, right? This is nothing new. Is this nothing new? Has the commission rates changed? No. Did we just suddenly do something different last year, the year before in terms of pricing? No. So what's happened is an incredible media buzz where suddenly buyers think and consumers think, not necessarily buyers, but consumers believe buyer's agents are being paid too much. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. We have to dispel that. People don't understand. That's what they think this was all about, that suddenly we were price gouging. Suddenly we were price gouging? Guys, they don't understand. For the last century, we've been doing business the same way. Nothing. The only thing that has changed is that greedy attorneys saw an opportunity to make money, and that's what they've done, right? Now, I'll also tell you what they've done. They've just begun a very, very long road of appeals. That's really what's happening. So I can guarantee you, and Joanna Watkins said this before knowing what would happen, if there was a loss, which we know happened, it's going to start a very long road of appeals that could take years. So they're going to be appealing 1.8 billion. There's no way anyone's going to be 1.8 billion. So this is going to be, it's not over. Let's put it that way. Additionally, what does it mean for you and I, right? Let's talk about that. Well, in terms of MLS, let's hit the nail on the head. We've known this was coming. We knew this was coming last year. We knew this was coming the year before. This is not new. We've been talking about this. I've been talking about this with brokers across the nation, especially with Sotheby's brokers, for at least 2 years now. this is not new. You've heard me talk about this, right? And I've been talking about it a lot this last year because California, several boards, small private boards, have taken away, and I'm just going to say they didn't take it away completely. They made the co-broke optional, meaning that you say to a seller, Mr. Mrs. Seller, how much would you like to offer the cooperating broker? And they could say zero. Now, up to this lawsuit, the National Association of Realtors said that it was not allowed to offer the co-broke nothing. You had to at least offer them $1. Now, I can tell you, there's been many times where you guys have called me and said, oh my gosh, Carrie, they're offering $1. What can we do? Nothing, because that was the rule. You had to at least offer something. In truth, it could have been a penny, which we've never seen that one, but it had to be something. That was the rule. You had to offer some type of compensation. Okay, and that has been the rule since the beginning of the existence of the National Association of Realtors, right? And the MLS. Not really the National Association of Realtors, but the MLS. So who started the MLS, right? We all know that the National Association of Realtors began the MLS. So what's happened now from the lawsuit is the National Association of Realtors says, and it's kind of funny because it backtracked, but anyway, they say you don't have to offer them. You can now, if you're a seller, choose not to offer the buyer's agent a commission. Interesting. Okay. Now, this is the interesting thing. This is going to be now up to each association how they want to handle this, each of MLS, because MLSs are not all the same. Stellar MLS is not the same as Space Coast MLS, which is not the same as, Citrus, right? They're all different MLSs. So we can't say what Stellar's going to do is the same thing that Space Coast, which will do, which is the same thing that Citrus will do. But I can tell you, we've been talking about this for a very long time. Now, the ones in the LA County and Southern California, and even I'm sure Northern California did some too, but the ones that I've been talking to, it's Valerie Swanson from Pacific Sotheby's that had already made that change starting in the spring of this year. Many sellers still offered it because it's optional. Okay, it's optional. So how much did it affect? Not that much. So we started talking about it on the advisory council, saying if we make this optional, and there's lawsuits that are going to continue to happen, what is the chance that they can say it is now mandatory, you cannot offer it? See, that is the worst case scenario. If they say to us, you can no longer offer, that's what we didn't want. So if we make it optional, we believe that we really reduce the risk of taking that off the table, which is why Stellar has gone ahead and made it optional. This will go into effect as November 14th. So right now, you still have to put at least $1 in that marking. You cannot change it. It has to at least be $1, believe it or not. But as of November 14th, we could put 0. That will be allowable in Stellar MLS. Now, how will Premier Sotheby's handle this? We all know that within Premier, we have our standards. This obviously will be changing along with the rules, but we as managing brokers are all still getting together and coming up with all of these things. So we will be getting back to shortly in regards to all of that. But obviously we're not going to go against what the National Association of Realtors says and what MLS says, right? But where I see this being a benefit to you guys is, guys, you know how much easier it is going to be to get a listing commission when you're not offering a buyer's commission? So we're going to talk about that in a second, okay? But this is the change. And so Stellar did talk about that at the virtual town hall. They did let everybody know there was an email that went out, and I guarantee none of you even saw it, right? And so this is the thing. Linda's like, nope, didn't say it. And this is the reality. It's going to hit a lot of people, and they're going to be shocked by it. So where it gives us the opportunity is knowledge, preparation, and we will be ready for it. Now, there are some problems that this brings up. One thing is the code of ethics. Okay, 16.6 states, and let me show you here. Hold on. Let me say share. I'm going to read it to you right here. Hold on, guys. Make this large. Oh, I know this has to be large. Hold on. Can you guys all see my screen, the PowerPoint? Okay, let me see. Play from slideshow. Play from right here. Oh, not from start. Sorry. Okay, you guys see this? This is the actual 16.6. Realtors acting as subagents or buyer tenant representatives or brokers shall not use the terms of an offer or purchase or lease to attempt to modify the listing broker's offer of compensation to subagents or buyer tenant representatives or brokers, nor make the submission of an executed offer contingent on the listing broker's agreement to modify the offer of compensation. That means when there's an offer of compensation in the MLS, you cannot say, let's say they're offering 1%. You cannot say, can you give me 2? Can you give me 3? It is 16.6 in the Code of Ethics that prohibits you from doing that. And it's truly because you're putting your own interest before that of your customers, aren't you? It's like saying this offer is only going to be valid if, in fact, you allow my offer of compensation to go to this, right? That is why you cannot negotiate that. But Joanna Watkins was very clear. And we've been doing it in the commercial forever. Can you negotiate your commission? First of all, let me ask you this with the listing. We negotiate all the time, right, with the seller. Can you negotiate your commission with the buyer? That's what the broker buyer agreement is for. And we're going to go over that. And right now, so you all know, Florida Realtors is, and she talked about it as well. And she said when they come out with it will be very determinant upon what happens with the verdict. So considering what happened with the verdict the very next day, that must mean it's coming out pretty quick because they're working on very stringent changes. They want to make sure they add an arbitration clause in that broker buyer agreement. They need to give the broker buyer agreement a little more teeth. We need to make sure that we can really enforce the broker buyer agreement. That's really what they're trying to change in the broker buyer agreement. So you're clear. I mean, it'll still have a lot of the same wording as to what we're going to do, as to what their duties are, and as to what we're going to be charging. I'm sure all that'll probably be very similar. But what they're trying to add is some arbitration clauses in there, and they're going to try to add some more ways for us probably to get our money. I don't know if it'll be liens on property like they do in commercial. We'll see. I mean, that's what they do in commercial property. In commercial property, the agent has a right to put the lien on the property till they get their commission. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? We like that. Yeah, if you're a commercial agent and they've signed an agreement, and in that agreement you've negotiated in your commission and they don't pay you, you can actually put a lien on the property until you get your money. Sweet. So
are you saying, I'm sorry to interrupt you, are
yeah.
you saying that for the buyer's broker agreement, there's going to be some verbiage about an opportunity for the buyer's agent to be able to negotiate their commission, which is indicated on that, and that would come out at the end of, like, at closing?
So what I'm saying is exactly, it's already in there that there is, hold on, let me share again and let me show you because I have it open on one of these billion screens that I have open. Let me go here to Chrome. And that's a great question. Let's go into that real quick. Here's the exclusive broker buyer agreement, right, guys? And I have them up here. Everybody can you guys all take them and pass them on, pass them down? Talk about our NAR verdict, right? Okay. So here's the broker buyer agreement as it stands today, guys, right? Within this broker buyer agreement, it already has compensation allowed for in here. We already see it, right? Let's move this up. You guys all see this compensation section? It allows right here, it says compensation is earned when during the term of this agreement or renewal extension, the buyer or any person acting on behalf of the buyer contracts to acquire real property as specified in the agreement, paying the broker in the amount specified. Forget the applicable taxes. I wish they would just take that out. Credited. The broker credited any amount from the broker receives from the seller. Okay. So this means that here you go. It's either a dollar amount or a percentage to be paid at closing. So meaning if you put down that you want to get 3% and the seller's paying 1%, you will get the difference from the buyer. That's what this is saying right here. If there's a lease, the same thing. If there's an option to purchase, you could do it all here. That's already there. The problem is there's not enough language in here. There's a protection period. If they buy without you and they saw a property after closing, this gives you the same type of protection as a listing agreement. Okay, that's why I like to put 180 days in there. But the problem is there's not any language in here about arbitration. There's not any language, what if they don't pay you, right? It just doesn't have enough teeth. That's the problem. And that's what they're looking at changing. Now, here's the second problem. How are they paying you? It doesn't actually say that either, Care, to your point. Is it on the HUD? It should be on the HUD. It should be part of closing costs. But as lenders, right? If it's a FHA or VA, they can't make it part of closing costs. And so they're trying to have conversations right now with the VA administration, with the Federal Housing Association. They're in conversations right now because they know those are the people who really need it built into the loan, and they're not allowed right now. A conventional, we don't have a problem. So we know there's bigger issues out there, and that's the conversations they're already in process having because we knew this was coming. Yes, Brad.
So going back to 16.6, if you have it in the buyer broker agreement that you're going to get 3% commission, are you able to go back to the listing agent and negotiate with them because of that at all? Because that's in your client's best interest.
No. That's a great question. Here's the workaround. Okay, you can't. Because you're bound by 16.6 by the code of ethics that states that would be putting your interest above that of your customer. But you signed this with your buyer. You told your buyer, and we're going to go through how we're going to talk to our buyer. That's part of what we're talking about today. But you've told your buyer, listen, I need to get paid 3. And the seller is offering 1. Okay. But what your buyer can do, just like a buyer can ask for closing costs, can't they? Can the buyer also ask the seller to pay the additional 2% for you? Absolutely. And that's not a code of ethics violation. The buyer can ask for whatever they want. You can't ask. You see the difference? That is the workaround. Where would it go? Right on the contract. Buyer and seller agree. Seller will pay 2% commission to the buyer's agent at closing.
How would they differentiate that from the original 1% though?
An additional 2%, you would have to, thank you very much. An additional 2% to the buyer's agent at closing. Thank you. You would have to, definitely word that properly. Not like I did. Or you could say a total of 3% to the buyer's agent. You just have to make, word it properly. Come to me, I'll help you word it.
What's the difference in that versus the 16.6?
16.6 is you calling the agent and saying, I need to get 3%. Will you accept 3? That's what agents try to do. Agents try to rework their commission before they put it in an offer.
But you can put it in the offer.
You're not putting it in. I'm sorry, Maria. Are you part of that contract? No. Agents are not.
Conversation with the buyer about.
Well, we're going to talk about what we do for the buyers, aren't we? Yes, but we are not party to the contract. Okay, agents are not party to the buyers and sellers contract. The residential contract are only between the buyer and the seller. But are they coming to us to be advisors? Absolutely. And is it our job to help them save money? Of course. So if we advise them on ways to do that, just like with closing costs, well, essentially our fee is of closing costs, isn't it? So that's really all we're helping them with. How to get their closing costs paid, aren't we? It's like a prepaid of closing costs, isn't it? Same kind of thing, isn't it? If you want them to pay your prepaids, if you want them to pay a rate buy down, if you want to pay your commission, it's all the same thing, but it has to come from the buyer. If it comes from the agent, it is a violation of 16.6. So you can't have a conversation with the agent on the other side about it. I mean, unless you're talking about reducing your commission to make a deal work, you guys can always do that, right? But if you're talking about increasing your commission to make a deal work, that's a violation of 16.6. You see what I'm saying? Because you're saying, I'm only gonna make this deal work because you gotta sweeten the pot for me. That's a violation, guys. If you're saying, I'm willing to take less, cut my wrist right now because I'm gonna do what I can to help my buyer buy. That's what you guys do. Makes me want to cry, but that's the truth of it, right? Because you're trying to make the deal work. That's fine. That's everybody working together. Did you see the difference? Who are you putting first, the customer or yourself? That's where the violation of code of ethics comes in. Okay. Does everybody see that? So what you're going to be seeing in the future, again, I think is really the changes here is not going to be within how they word this. The changes are going to be additional to what happens if. What happens if, and we can look at a commercial contract, but in the commercial contract, there's this whole separate paragraph that states that if the agent does not get paid, they can put a lien on the property until their commission is paid. I hope they add that. That'd be super sweet. Oh yeah, it's in commercial. It's my favorite part of the commercial contract as an agent. Slap that lien on there till you pay me. Yeah, because you've done a job. Now, here's the point, guys. And like we're going to be doing in social media on Tuesday, we all need to be doing this. We need to be getting the message out to buyers because buyers are not understanding what is happening. They are all thinking because the whole spin on this is what? Buyers agents have been paid too much. Really? Because what, we do nothing? I mean, and they're thinking 2 and 2.5% is too much. Nobody's going to want to work with you. Are you kidding me? So let's switch over right now to exactly what this is going to mean for them. Can you guys see my screen of the buyer consultation? You guys see this? Oh, no. Can you see that? You guys see buyer consultation? Everybody see that?
Yeah.
You don't see it, Chad? Brad, do you see it? No? Okay, hold on.
No.
Hold on, I'm gonna stop share and reshare. Okay, let's see here. Let's make sure everybody can see the same thing. So share screen. Share. Okay, play from the start. Now can everybody see it? Okay, Brad, you see it?
Yes.
Okay, I think we lose. Okay. Can you add the percentages? Okay, Horse Country Ocala, Stacy, can you add the percentages of the offer beside your name? Please never do that. Thank you for asking that question, Stacy. Stacy asked if you could add the percentage of your commission next to the name. That is a code of ethics violation, guys. If you write your percentage of commission next to your name on the residential contract where you say you're representing the customer, that is a code of ethics violation. That is essentially saying, I'm only representing this customer if I get this much. Everybody clear on what I mean by that? You are not party to the sale. You're simply writing your name to say that you're representing, contact me for anything you need. That is all you're simply saying. Thank you for asking that, Stacey. That was a great question. Okay. 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 If anybody else has any other questions, you might need to unmute because I don't look at chat very often. Okay. So let's look at this buyer consultations. This is going to be imperative because buyers do not get what's happening. Buyers are thinking that they're going to get all this awesome service for free. Or worse, that they can call the listing agent and get the service for free. Let's talk about that. If you're representing a seller and the seller says, I don't want to offer commission to the other side, do you want to represent that customer for free? If something goes wrong and they want to sue you, do you think your errors and omissions are going to cover you? I mean, that's a big nightmare waiting to happen right there, guys. We need to protect ourselves for all of these things. Thanks, Laura. Okay, good to see you. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk about ways we can do this. First, here's a value question right out of Ninja for your buyers. Do you believe a home will sell for a fixed price, or do you believe there's a range of value based on the experience and the negotiation skill of your realtor? I mean, what do you think, guys? Does every home just have an actual fixed price on it? Or can you get it for a different price if your realtor is good at negotiating? What do you think? And if the realtor is good at finding the homes and understanding the value, right? And good at doing good market analysis. This is a really important question. Everybody got your pictures? Okay. So it's the listing turned, right? This is the ninja question. And then if the buyer really thinks about it, they're going to realize it's really the range of value. Now, the next question is, when do you make your money, guys? Because if you think about it, it's not when you sell the home. It's when you buy the home. Because if you bought your home too high, you got to hope and pray that the market's good when you sell it. But if you bought your home at a good price, well, if the market's good, great, you'll do great. If the market's bad, you'll still do okay. The value, and ask any real estate investor, when you make your money is not when you sell. It's when you buy your home, right? Got my real estate investors in the room nodding their head. You've got to make sure every buyer understands that. Now, here's the thing. Who's typically working with buyers? Brand new agents. Okay? So what are these new agents doing? Half the time, which by the way, they took this out 2 years ago in 2019, they used to search for the commission and only show things that were good commissions. Do you know that? They removed that from the MLS in 2019. She actually talked about it on the virtual town hall because they knew people were doing that. How terrible is that? But also, as this changes, right? And now there's going to be sellers not offering commissions. There's going to be, for sale by owners. There's going to be off-market properties. Do you think a new agent, especially, or an agent who's just not very good, let's be honest, there's plenty of long-time agents who just are not very good. Do you think they're going to have access to all these properties? Do you think they're going to show any property? No. They're only going to show the properties they're going to get paid on. So as a buyer, is it better for you to see only the properties that your agent's going to get paid on, or any property that fits your needs and could be potentially the best property for you to make money on? Which would be better? Right? So it's critical that you have an advisor who's working for you, that will show you any property that understands, right, your needs.
That would just need to tell the seller.
Well, this is really, we'll get to sellers for a second, but you got to think about the buyer for a second. Let's put our mindset. They will have to pay us.
No, they have to pay us, but they're not getting nothing with the lawsuit, because they don't have to pay us.
But this is the point. This is the point of what we're talking about here today. Buyers agents, really, in my opinion, for the first time ever, buyers are actually going to get good representation. Let's be honest. Right now, for years, most of the time, buyers are, I hate to say this, stuck with brand new agents. So the truth of the matter is, how good of a representation have they been getting? Who knows? They've been showing them whatever listings they find. Maybe sometimes what listings they were getting paid on that were okay. Maybe they weren't being shown every listing that was good. Maybe they didn't understand because they didn't do a CMA. Maybe they didn't understand all the different terms and things, right? I mean, think about that. Maybe there was truth. Maybe these poor buyers really weren't being represented well. Doesn't mean they were overpaid. It just means maybe they didn't have great representation. But now for the first time, they get to choose who, because they're going to pay them. They're going to be in charge. But hold that thought for a second. So now we understand how critical it is to have the right one. And they have to understand they have to negotiate the contract. Do they want to give it to the listing agent to negotiate a contract for them? Who's representing the seller? It's like going to a builder where you're stuck with that builder's agent, where the builder writes the contract and you don't get to pick anything, right? Is that contract in your favor? Never. This is your opportunity to have a contract in your favor. So you better have a person who understands the 5 key terms you have to negotiate: your price, your deposit, other down payments. Let's talk about, 1 second, the other down payment. Today, in a world where escrow disputes are rampant, we're going to be thinking about saving your first deposit. So as much as we understand your offer is strong by the money you put down, we're going to put very little down in the beginning, and we're going to show the strength of your money after the inspection period, right? That's the other deposit. We're going to do that because we're good agents, because we understand that. And we understand how to make your financing look better. We understand we're not going to give you a short period of time and then run out of time, and then you'll lose the home because we didn't give us enough time to close. And we're going to beg the seller for an extension that they're not going to give us because we understand how financing works. How many brand new agents do that? They put down 30 days for a VA. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No VA closes in 30 days. That's retarded. Okay, I've seen stupid things all the time. We're not going to do those things because we are excellent agents. Did you have a question, Andre?
So more and more, what's your price? I should like a little call from a buyer.
Uh-huh.
That saw it on Zillow or saw it on,
Mhm.
sign-up funds. I mean, one to work with the listing agent, so I mean.
Okay, we're going to hit that. We're going to hit that in a second.
For showing, and then you want to show them more homes, and they're like, no, I'm only working with listing agents. And I said, okay, then bring your agent to come show this house. Like, I'm done showing my personal listings.
Well, hold on. We're going to hit that in a second. This actually is going to help you now. Here you go. We have to determine the dates, like we just talked about, inclusions and exclusions. Guys, you know how many people never think about the things that are not written in the contract that blow the deal up? Your Ring doorbells, okay? A smart home, right? Those stupid solar lights, all these things that blow up your contract, we're going to be looking at. We're going to make sure they're included in your contract or excluded in your contract. We're going to be looking at all those things that most people leave blank. You know how many contracts are so poorly written? All day long, I see them. And contingencies. Listen, we understand contingencies. Most people don't even know what a contingency even is. They try to write their own. Please. We understand what contingencies truly are, and we can talk about contingencies. So these are the reasons you need to have a real agent. And when you hire your own advisor, you see every property that fits your criteria, no matter if they're offering a compensation or not, right? We're going to do a market analysis on each property before they put the offer in to make sure they're in the highest position to negotiate. And we can structure their offer to include all or part of our compensation, depending on what the seller's willing to offer. So look at that. They can maybe even get our commission paid for them. So, hello, they can maybe have their cake and eat it too. We can try, but they have to be willing to pay. You see the difference? And then once we've negotiated the best contract, I'm going to be your transaction manager. Because there's so many moving parts in a contract, my job is to handle those parts so your contract closes smoothly on time. And there's a huge part of your financing called buyer's due diligence. If the buyer doesn't use diligent effort, the buyer will lose their deposit. The lender is not party to that contract. If the lender drags their feet and you don't get your stuff in time and they send a denial because it wasn't in on time, you lose your deposit. So my job is to stay on top of the lender as well, to make sure that you're going to close or at least cancel within the right period of time so you get your money back. You see, guys, you know how many times I see people losing their deposit because I didn't use diligent effort? You just don't know, but I see this stuff all day long. This is what buyers don't understand. When I told my father, he's like, wasn't it easy to represent the buyer? No. You know how many buyers are losing their money all the time? How about if you don't send in the fact that you've received loan approval or not received loan approval, by the time the loan approval period ends, the seller can cancel your contract in 3 days. Hello, how many agents don't even know that? This is so critical that you have a good buyer's agent. These are the things you need to tell the buyer. They're gonna be like, what do you mean people can cancel my contract? Absolutely. And if your agent is not aware and does not understand contracts and has not written at least a certain number of contracts, and a certain price point, then they should not be handling your transaction. And if that you want to give your largest investment up to somebody who does not know what they're doing, good luck. I mean, why would you do that? Right? Does that make sense? So here you go. Now let's talk about on the seller side. So we talked about how we can't talk about that. Now when we talk about the seller, we have to flip things around a little bit, guys. Because to Andrea's point, it is critical that we protect ourselves. First of all, it's going to give us an opportunity to, one, get better commission. So here, which I'm having revised for the 50th time, our commission worksheet. We're gonna have them printed on nice copy, but they have to be revised once again. You need more? I have more. Okay. So let's take a peek at this first up. Let's end show. Can you guys see this or, oh, hold on. Guys on Zoom, can you see selecting the marketing options that you'd like for your home? Can you see that, Brad?
No,
Oh,
no, with
goodness.
the seller.
Hold on, start share. This one. I have so many things open. Now you can see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move this over here. Okay. So this goes into all the different things that we are already doing for you. So this one here is everything we're already doing for you. And then it goes through all these different options. And then you flip it over and it says, oh, I see you've chosen the platinum plan or the gold plan or the silver plan. Now we're changing these numbers to be 4, 3.5, and 3. How easy is it going to be to a seller? Oh, I see you've chosen the platinum plan. That's only 4%. And then they go, oh, that sounds good. Or maybe you say, you know what? You really don't need that aerial photography if we're doing the Matterport, or you don't need the Matterport if we're doing the aerial. How about we do all of that for 3.5? How's that sound? That sounds great. And then you secure that and you say, and now how much would you like to offer the cooperating broker, the one bringing the buyer? And they could say however much they want to offer, or they don't. Do you think it'll be easier for you to get a nice listing commission for yourself? What do you guys think? I think we could probably get some nice 4s over here. Anybody agree with that?
Where do we find this? Where do we find this lovely flyer at?
It's a Carrie special, so I'll bring it to
And where are our Carrie specials at for people that are a little slow like me?
Yeah, I don't have them anywhere online. I have to get them and print them and bring them in the office. But I'm
They're
getting
that special. Okay, okay.
yeah, they're that special. But I'm getting it reprinted by Mackenzie because I need to have the numbers changed. Because now after the verdict, I was like, change the numbers. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
What if, I think there was a question that came up that said,
Yeah.
if, you can ask for, the buyers can ask for the commission for you as a agent, right?
Yes.
But what if, like, and this goes into what you're saying as far as sellers, you have some seller, new constructions, they are offering like 1%, right, to the buyer's agent. Now, if they're offering 0, let's say that you as a buyer's agent, are you allowed to go to a builder and ask for higher commission in this instance or no?
Again, a builder is a little different, but again, if you're saying to a builder, my customer's only going to buy here. I mean, a builder's a little different.
So this doesn't really apply to a builder.
It's not really builder. This is really more
Seller.
MLS stuff. Yeah, builders are always a little different.
But they
Yeah.
also use MLS.
What was that?
How are you gonna say that investing for the new construction? They also put a commission on it.
Well, if it's an inventory home, it's different. But again, with the builder, it's a little different. Builders are not realtors, are not party to the code of ethics. It's a little different. We can always work with the builders a little different.
So right now, they're actually increasing.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen
Because
that.
the top market, now they're doing 3% plus
Mhm.
10,000 dollars, so as the market gets up, they keep going up because they want.
I mean, again, you really, again, it is a code of ethics violation if you say my buyer won't buy unless, but you know, if you say, well, my buyer's in between these two communities and they happen to sweet the deal for you, that's a different story entirely. You know, you never want to make it only about you though. That's the thing, because that is the code of ethics violation. You got to make it about your buyer too. So,
Hi, Carrie.
yes,
I have a quick question for you.
sure.
You just said now you just mentioned the builders are not realtors. So there's some companies that the real estate agents are not realtors either. So would that be an advance on us who are realtors and are following NAR on
No,
this decision?
no, I mean, they can always hold us to the code of ethics because we're realtors and they're not. But the reality is the code of ethics is the one thing that helps us stand above everybody else. There's not a lot of real estate agents that are big companies. There's very few big companies that are not realtor associations. There's some smaller mom and pops that are real estate agents. And usually they do horrible dealings because they don't know what the code of ethics is. So they usually violate things right, left, and center, and they usually have a pretty bad reputation. So I don't think it will be any benefit for any of us to not follow the code of ethics, for sure. I mean, we always want to be following all professional standards. And again,
Yeah, what I mean is not following the code of ethics, but why we are part of NAR if this is their decision and some other agents can be doing freely what we've been doing until today.
the national, we could, the point is to be part of the National Association of Realtors, there's a lot of benefits. And the biggest thing is the code of ethics. So if you're not part of the National Association of Realtors, you're not a realtor and you don't follow the code of ethics. So it means that you're not held to the high standards. You can't consider yourself a realtor. So you're not held to the same standards. So that's why all big companies have always decided to be part of the National Association of Realtors, but they also provide a ton of benefits and resources. Like the RPR is given to us by NAR. That's one of the biggest ones that we get from NAR. MLS comes to us from the National Association of Realtors. That's where it started from. So we get a lot of benefits from the National Association of Realtors. So I think it would be stupid for agents to all drop out of NAR. Yes. Are we going through some crazy stuff right now? We are. But we are always stronger. If you think about where did unions come from, it's a trade association, but we're always stronger together. That's the whole point. If you have a group of agents that all belong to something, as a group of one, you're always stronger together. And so if you all become a bunch of little mom and pops, it's easier to pick you off and you don't have any kind of strength in numbers. So I completely, wholeheartedly agree. We all should stay part of NAR. Absolutely. I think it devalues everyone's brand if you're not part of NAR. For sure. That's my opinion. Okay. But thanks for the question. It was a good one. So let's also talk about moving forward. So I hope this helps you guys in your negotiations. I think it's a good one. If you don't, too bad. I'm just kidding. Let's see. Any questions on that, how that works? All right. And now I want to go back over here. Now, this is really going to be important to you as we move forward, because what's going to happen, guys, is to Andrea's point, seller's going to be like, oh, well, I just want to deal with the listing agent. Well, what if your seller says, I don't want to pay a co-broke? Okay. So this is where it's going to be very critical. You are going to ask your seller some very important things. Number one, you need to clarify with your sellers, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I want to make sure, and I'm sure this is obvious, but you want to make sure that everybody who walks through your property is pre-approved and has a proof of funds, correct? Because we want to make sure everybody should be walking through your property. What seller is going to say no to that? You need to get that approval from your seller up front. Now, you can make a call on that, but you need to have that. Okay, number one, and I'll tell you why. Number two, you need to ask Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here in the state of Florida, we typically use two forms created by the Florida Bar Association. One is the residential contract. One is the as-is contract. The as-is contract essentially gives a cancel for any reason clause. You can take it off the market 5, 10, 50 days, and then they can cancel for any reason. They can have an inspection or not have an inspection, but it's up to the buyer, and then they can cancel for any reason. The other one is a residential contract. We pre-negotiate how much you will give for general repairs, wood destroying organisms, and open permits, or if you need to have permits. And then they have to have an inspection by a licensed inspector. And then they have to give us the inspection summary report, and it has to say must repair or replace. And then if it's within the limits of what you've already agreed to, they don't even need an addenda because you've gotten the estimates, and we will just go ahead and get it taken care of. Now, if it goes beyond that, then we have a conversation between us and the buyers, and we decide, are they going to pay for some? Are you going to pay for some? Or do they just want a credit? Or perhaps they cancel the contract and get their money back. Which would you prefer? Guys, which one's the seller going to say? Okay, I'm just saying, really. But anyway, whichever one they go with is irrelevant. I mean, obviously, if it's a blower upper home, you have to explain that and get them to say an as-is contract. But you need them to pick a contract. You need to put a contract, whichever contract, you need to have it chosen by the seller and you need to have it in the MLS. And this is why. A buyer calls up, please be my buyer, Andrea, and you're not represented. Call me.
Hi, Carrie, I'm calling you, I saw your home on Zillow, I would like to see it today.
Terrific. Are you represented by a buyer, an agent?
No, I'm doing directly with the listings.
Oh, I am the listing agent. Great. You'd like me to represent you?
Yeah.
Terrific. I would love to represent you either on this home or another home. I'll help you with all transactions and contracts. I only charge 3%.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, so we're gonna just see that home with you and we're going directly with us with this page, and we've done this before.
That's terrific. So you'll be paying me 3% then.
For your home.
It's on this listing. Mhm. Terrific. So we'll sign a broker buyer agreement and you'll be paying 3% to me on this listing.
Will the sellers pay?
No, the seller has chosen not to pay a buyer's agent. So it has to be paid for by the buyer.
Okay, so let's negotiate.
I'm sorry? No, I think it's great.
I mean, we love it, but.
Yeah, but what if they're not willing to pay it?
Come on, Teresa.
I'm not willing to pay that. I'm not willing to.
Well, then go ahead. You can get any agent you'd like and then come back and see me.
That's a loss.
But that would.
A lawsuit for who?
No, I'm just
That's
saying.
the thing.
Mhm. And you can say, well, terrific. Are you doing cash or are you financing? Are you cash or financing?
Wow. Financing.
Terrific. Do you have your pre-approval?
Yes.
Great. You can give me that. And then we can go ahead and get you started. And again, I'm only 2%. 3%. I'll be handling all of your transaction management details and everything for only 3%.
But that only so if the buyer says I want to pay it. Now, let's say the buyer's like, well, screw that, I'm not paying that. And then.
Well, I'm sorry, then go ahead. You can use any agent you'd like and then
So
let
let's
me
say-
know when you want to come see it.
Not if you're the list agent, let's say that you're the buyer's agent and then the buyer's like, I'm not paying that. And then you get like 4 other buyers that say the same thing and it's like, okay, well.
Well, I guess they're not seeing anything. That is the thing for the buyer. But you see, so they say, well, I'm going to put in my own contract. Terrific. The seller will be requesting a Florida Bar Association residential contract. Let me know when you have one.
So does this still count for like if you're double ending the deal, you still have to sign a buyer broker agreement with the buyer?
Yeah, because the double ending the deal, the seller's only paying the list side.
But that's not the best interest for the seller. Then there's a code of ethics.
It doesn't matter if it's the best interest for the seller. The seller has decided what's the best interest for the seller. The seller has directed you that they're not paying for the buyers. See, you have to change your mindset. If the seller says, I don't want to pay the buyer's commission, they have directed you, that's what they want to do.
Do we then explain to them that this scenario and that it could possibly cause them?
When you're on the listing presentation, of course. But I'm just saying, if they're like, no, because listen, just as the buyers are seeing this, so are the sellers. And if the seller's like, I don't have to pay, I don't want to pay. And if you say, well, people may not want to see your home if you're not willing to pay them, and say, well, that's fine. Then you need to make sure that you're getting them to make sure that everybody's pre-approved, because that way you're not just showing the home to anybody. Because you can't just say, because that's not a code of ethics. You don't have to show the home to anybody. They've directed you to only show the home to people who are pre-approved, and you don't have to work for free. No one says you have to work for free. Yeah.
So let's say that the buyer says, I don't want to pay you, I don't want to work with you, you represent the seller. Great, can I have one of my colleagues give you a call and feel more comfortable?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sure, not a problem.
I've never had a buyer, but I've had buyers tell me, say, I only.
There's a lot of buyers.
I don't work with buyers against my sellers because I only represent my seller and I've been doing that.
There's a lot of buyers that think that you're going to work for free.
Right.
And that's where we're going to have to work very hard if our sellers say zero.
We'll give them a better price. once you're not sitting-
Yeah. That's what they think. But what we have to do, guys, and this is where it gets really sticky, because there's no code of ethics violation if the seller has told us we're not representing the buyers.
And then I can call one of you and say this buyer doesn't want me to help him.
Yeah, but if they also don't want to pay,
Right, and then you have to negotiate your commission with them, because my seller's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, really, the buyers are still the ones that are suffering.
yeah, and they are. See, this is guys. Now look here. There's also a website put out by NAR. It's nar.realtor/competition in real estate. So take a look at this. This gives some really great information. It keeps information updated on the different lawsuits. It gives some great information on things that you can talk about. It gives great information on how we can support competition, how we can be reliable resources to buyers, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is we're going to come up with some really great buyer tools. We're going to come up with a great buyer presentation. But what I keep hearing out there is how many listing agents are like, I'm not working with buyers anymore. That's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing from people, I'm not going to work with buyers anymore. And this is the thing, guys. Buyers are going to be the ones who are going to get the short end of the stick here. I'm telling you. Now, do I think it's going to immediately be like every seller does not want to represent a buyer? I think it's going to be easier to negotiate the buy side and the sell side commission because we're separating it. So now it doesn't seem like that big a deal. Yeah.
On the buy side, is there gonna be a minimum that we're required to?
That's what I don't know. That's what I'm waiting to hear about. I mean, I don't know how we can do that because the National Association says 0. So I don't know, but I'm waiting to hear that myself. That's a great question.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So in my point of view, yeah, the seller pays, but the one taking the money out of their pocket and transfer it to the seller is a buyer. So if the buyer qualifies for 500,000, not a penny more, he can make an offer at 500,000 and that includes the 6% commission.
Absolutely. It's
So now-
semantics, Andrea.
So now if it's only 3% commission and the buy side needs to be paid for by the buy side, by the buyer, now he needs to qualify for 515. So the seller.
Or
is still getting
essentially the home should, what they're trying to say is the home should be reduced, but that's probably not happening.
But then you're
Exactly.
taking that away from the seller, right?
Exactly.
So,
And
I
then,
mean,
well,
in the end,
what
both
they're
of us
trying to
can-
say is that they negotiated in a higher price on the home to cover the commission, which in reality is true, right? When you come up with the net, they always do include in the commission they're paying. It is semantics. At the end of the day, it goes in the loan if they have a loan regardless. The problem is if you're FHA or VA, you can't put it in your loan if the seller's not paying for it.
Yeah, but
That's
if you
why
buy
you
a
need
cup
him
of
to cover
coffee
it.
at Starbucks, it's still, you're not just paying for the coffee, you're paying for the person who's serving you, for the, for the store, for everything
Yeah.
that's going on with that experience.
Of course.
And not just for the coffee itself, because otherwise when you do it on your own and then, you know.
I understand everything you're saying. Attorneys created this to make money for themselves. This whole thing is ridiculous. One guy got mad. He probably did have bad service. He got angry. An attorney saw an opportunity to make money and it turned into a huge class action lawsuit. Let's be honest. But it happened during a time where the market was insane. And unfortunately, everybody saw the market going crazy, prices going through the roof, and they said, yeah, realtors are making too much money. That's what happened, right? Hello, did they get increases in their wages? Right? Let's say attorneys are making too much money, right? But no one's looking at that. Let's say car companies are making way too much. Look how much a car costs today. No one's looking at that. So the point is, it's ridiculous. But the reality is we need to create the messaging about who's the one getting hurt here. It's the buyers. On our side, nothing changed. We didn't change our commission. We didn't suddenly start charging ridiculous prices. We didn't price gouge. We're not the ones who increased the prices of the homes. If anybody did, it was the sellers. Why are they suing the sellers? They're suing the realtors, right? I mean, it was the greedy sellers who increased the price of their homes. It wasn't the realtors. The problem is, guys, we are not in control of that. All we can control is the narrative, right? And right now, there's all this negative talk about the National Association of Realtors. Now, unfortunately, the CEO, that was a whole nother stupid thing, which he stepped down, thank God. So that's a good thing. So the CEO stepped down. But the National Association of Realtors has been around since early 1900. Do you know why it was started? Do you guys know why the National Association started? Because before we had the National Association, everybody sold real estate. It was caveat emptor, good luck. There was no rules, no regulation, nobody to protect the public. It was a mess. That's why the National Association was created. That's why the Code of Ethics was created, to protect the public. That's the whole point of it. And that's why if you want to back away from the National Association of Realtors and the whole point of protecting the public, what does it say about us as realtors? What does it say about us in our profession? We're always trying to clean up our profession, because to me, anybody who does stuff that is unethical, it makes us look bad. So all these little companies that don't even know what the Code of Ethics is, you don't think that they're not doing things that are unethical. They do it all the time. They all make us look bad. If we're not turning people in for Code of Ethics violations, we make ourselves look bad. We have to clean up our, so if we walk away from the National Association of Realtors and the Code of Ethics, what are we doing to our whole, I mean, we just look like a bunch of used car salesmen. That's what we look like. We might as well be in timeshare. I mean, seriously, you know, yeah, sure. You can own a home and become a resident. Really? That's a lie. What's stopping us from Linda's laughing. She knows. Sure, you're a Brazilian? Sure, by the time you'll become a US citizen. That's a lie, guys. You know, it's the same thing.
Right now, I don't see it being a problem for us. But if it comes back to, how many, 10 years or something to what we saw in 2022 or 2021, that's the market where 1% yield. Or they're just gonna go directly to just listing it.
Listen, if they go to 0%, it's okay. Because if we become buyers agents and get the commission at 3%, we're controlling our money, guys. And then we negotiate it in and make the seller pay for it anyway. Again, right? Which is what happened before. Anyway, we just negotiated back into the deal.
Question, Carrie. You were telling, and forgive me because I'm
Yeah.
with this, but I just hear what you guys say a lot. And how does this affect that you're a transaction broker? Because now I feel like you're going to be a buyer's agent or a listing agent. No?
It's that is okay. Agency has no relationship. Agency, the difference in agency of single agency or transaction broker has only to do with two things: fiduciary relationship and full confidentiality. If you're representing a listing side or a buyer side, it just means what side of the deal you're on. It doesn't mean that you're giving them full confidentiality. Run and hide. Do not let them tell you all their deep, dark secrets. They're scary. We don't want to know them. And number two, we're not going to do full, fiduciary relationship. We're not their, confidants. We don't want to do whatever they tell us to do. We're not going to do that. We're still going to maintain transaction brokerage. We are here to make the transaction work, whether we're on the buy side or the sell side. It doesn't matter.
But if you're kind of the person that calls Andrea's customer, that they're not going to pay you.
Mm-hmm.
How does that, I don't know.
Buyer's representation. Listen, I could be a transaction broker, but still represent you in the buy side of the deal. It doesn't mean I'm going to give you full confidentiality or fiduciary relationship. That doesn't mean that. It just means that I am going to represent you. I'm going to put a contract together for you. I can even do a CMA for you. I can show you all of our comps. You see what I'm saying? I'm still working for you.
Well, when she was talking about how I work, I'm gonna
that's a slippery slope. She has to be careful how she says that. I was going to talk to her after about that, but you brought it up.
Figure out how to say stuff if you're still protecting your seller, because your seller's not going to pay anything but the 3%. So then
she could say the seller will not allow me, because per code of ethics, you can only work on both sides as a transaction broker if the buyer and seller agree with that. That's a code of ethics. So even as a transaction broker, you must have the approval of both buyer and seller to work with both sides. So she could say, my seller doesn't approve for me to work with the buyer, so I would love to recommend you. Okay. That's the way she has to say it. She can't say I only choose to, because that gives the false impression of fiduciary. Yeah. No, because it makes it seem like you're fiduciary. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So you work with the buyer,
she's new.
So you first meet with them and you
with
decide
me.
all this. Okay. But then you could tell them we could put in the offer and see if the seller would agree to pay us.
Or part of it.
Okay. But then if the seller says, nope, not paying it,
then they have to pay for it. That's why you have to get them to agree. Mhm.
So what happens, cause I went to the bathroom, but Andrea had said something like the additional amount for the commission. Does that mean it's like a closing cost, but that affects like the mortgage or anything like that?
Well, it does now. It does now because it gets added to the price of the home,
Oh, right.
just like a closing cost would.
500,000, but he's not paying the buyer's agent now, he's making the.
Well, it depends. If you're on the listing side, right? When you go in on a listing presentation, you calculate in the cost of the commission when you're helping to price the home. Because you know what his net is. You know what the CMA is. You know what he's trying to make. I mean, you already know that. We already calculate that in. You know what I'm saying? Based upon the CMA. So we're just going to do it based upon less if we know that we're only paying one side. But the CMA is the CMA, right? Either he can get the fair market value or he can't. You know if you're adding 6% to whatever the fair market value is, you know you're overpriced.
But I don't see ourselves working with sellers that only want to pay our end and not pay our side because of the same thing. How many of those leases are gonna expire? What is going to 12 hours? What?
Because
I mean, I just want my numbers to go like, oh, now you know you can take, 100 and
South America.
something on the.
What I think will happen, guys, is what happened in California. Hardly anybody did it. Hardly anybody did it. It was in there. Listen, you're always going to see a small percentage of people jump at it, but I don't think it's going to truly affect us. Like I said, how many of our people offered $1? Nobody. But I think if we come in and say, do our value proposition, do our thing, and then say, okay, great, how much you want off the buy side? And then we explain how, you know what, now that they're offering 0, this is your opportunity to shine. I think we could really use that for us, right? On both sides. But it gives us the break to really explain our value, get them higher for us, and then explain their value. You see what I'm saying? Now, by the way, let's say we did a 3 for us and a 2.5 for the buy side. That is not variable commission. So let's be clear what variable commission is. Okay? Variable commission is if you said it was a 6% commission, but if I represent the buyer's side, then I will drop my total commission to 5%. That is called variable commission. We have to put that in the MLS. The buyer agent needs to understand if anybody else is putting in an offer, they have a right to know if they call and say, hey, Teresa, I see you have variable commission. Do you have an offer in? You say, yes. Is it represented by you? You say, yes. I now know my offer has to be better than hers. She doesn't have to tell me what her offer is, but my offer has to be better because her offer already is better, even if it's at the same price, because the commission is less.
So where does that go in the MLS?
There's an actual slot that says variable commission. There's a checkbox. We always try to notice for that. But if I ever catch a variable commission, but sometimes I look at your listing agreements late. So if you notice that, you have to check that in MLS that it's a variable commission. But it's not if you're doing a 3%, like if we're breaking this up and you're doing 3% and they say, okay, I want to give the buy side 2.5 or something like that, right? That's not variable commission. Variable commission is only if it's different commission for you than it is for Lisa. That's variable commission. Does that make sense? There's been confusion over that. That is a code of ethics thing. We do have to make sure that we follow that. Most people are good about it, but I just want to make sure everybody is aware of what actually variable commission
And
is.
if we ask the listing agent, they have to disclose to us the offers.
That if they have an offer that is represented by them, they have to disclose that. They don't have to disclose what it is, but yeah. Mhm.
Let me ask you a quick question. I'm
Yes.
seeing a lot of transactions where if I'm on the buy side, I'm getting 2.5% and the listing agent's getting 3.5%. I see it on the HUD.
Uh-huh.
What is your take on that? Do you allow us to? I mean, do
Yeah.
you-
You can totally do that if you want to. Absolutely. The thing is, I think it depends. Like, let's say you have a referral, right? Not corporate reload, they never allow that. But let's say it's a regular referral, you're paying money on that. So you're not actually getting the same percentage as the buyer side. So you know what I mean? So realistically, you're probably getting what they're getting at the 2.5.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
But you still go with what Alex was saying, like you're still not representing the seller.
No, you have to talk to the seller. The seller has to approve whatever the commission is. It's on the listing agreement.
You can say I prefer paying with an agent.
Oh, if you've done this, they've agreed to 3% for you or 3.5% for you. And then you say how much you want to offer the buy side, they'd say 2.5. See what I'm saying?
I believe the big part is like the listing agents to educate the sellers. Because
Yes.
In South America, it's like that. They decide how much they're gonna take. It can take a year to sell the house. But what are the chances you do it? The buyer comes to your home and lease it. How many people?
Well, the difference is, Alex, in South America, they don't have the MLS, number one. Number two, they can only sell in their specific areas. They can't sell everywhere.
They
They're-
might not use house because I have MLS. They go for zero.
No, but the buyers here should be represented by agents.
Okay.
That's the point. Number two, again, I agree with you. It is the listing agent's job to explain to them. And to your point, I don't think, again, guys, I think we're getting very worried about it. I don't think it's going to really affect our listings. I really don't, because they could have done $1 before. I mean, I think what it's going to do is going to help us, but I think what we really have to do is prepare ourselves for the buyers. That's what we really have to prepare ourselves for. It's for the buyers who think we're going to work for free, which we're not. It's for the buyers who are we have to make sure that we are explaining to the buyers our value proposition at all times. And we need to start taking broker buyer agreements. And that's what the National Association of Realtors has called for. Every agent to start doing broker buyer agreements. Because I can guarantee you it may come to a time, and it wouldn't be a bad thing if everybody started doing buyer agency agreements with the buyers.
Is there a way to push for that to be required?
I would love it. Listen, I've been screaming broker buyer agreements since the day you saw me here, but I've been doing it since I have never worked with a buyer without a buyer broker agreement. If God be my witness. No, seriously, I have not ever worked a buyer without a buyer broker agreement. And I'll tell you why. Because I was in general for about 2 seconds before I went to the builder, and I saw how many times buyers double cross their agents all the time, all over town. So by the time I got back into general, I was like, I will never work without a buyer broker agreement. I tell you, so I have never not worked without a buyer broker agreement. And the 2 times that people wouldn't sign it, I walked away. They were both Brazilian. I hate to say that, but I walked away both times and went shopping. And I did very well shopping those days. But yeah, it is not worth your time, guys. Those people that won't sign it, they're going to screw you. I'm sorry. They are going to turn in a contract with somebody else. That is why they will not sign your buyer broker agreement. If you think there's any other reason than that, I'm sorry, you're being very naive. That's the only one. Oh yeah, no, it's branded in dot loop, but that is the only, until we have the one from Florida Realtors that has a little more teeth, that's the one we have. But you need to use that. Plus it helps you at the builder. If they go on without you, you can use that. And most of the time they'll add you to the deal. But I'm telling you, you have to start using that. And it'll be good for you, because most of you guys, you really should practice your negotiation. Because if how many times they're offering you like nothing? I've seen 1% on the buy side. Why shouldn't you be getting 3? Why shouldn't you? And then help the buyer negotiate in the difference to get paid for by the seller. Why not? Or make the buyer pay the difference. Who wants to run around with buyers all the time and not get paid? Guys, seriously, your time is worth more than that. I mean, the people who think that buyers are easy, seriously, guys, they're not easy. They're a nightmare. Oh, did I say that out loud? You guys know I love sellers. They're so only Maria. And Maria says it all the time. She sees them double crossing us.
Our office.
Yeah.
For the most part, but
Yeah.
I do see people I have them pre-approved and then someone refers to me, I get them pre-approved.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, they're off doing their own thing. And I'm like, and then I feel bad, like, do I want to tell this person?
Yeah.
Listen,
guys, if you explain your value proposition to these people, by the way, they will really appreciate how much you're doing. And when it's time to sell, they'll remember that too. You're setting the groundwork for them to be your listings. So why not? Right? All that stuff we talked about is really stuff you're doing. How many people don't think you do anything? You got to tell them what you're doing. You got to show them what you're doing. you
Well,
know?
I like your idea too, when you were talking about, even with the listing agents, and I know y'all probably do this, but just explaining the difference between the two contracts. So
Yeah,
they understand, I mean, the more knowledge you're. sharing
knowledge
with
is
the buyer
power.
Or the seller, the more of your knowledge you're sharing, then it elevates your value.
And you know, you should be talking to them about homestead. You know, you should be telling them, I'm going to help you with the homestead exemption, explain to them what's here in homestead here in Florida. I mean, really, you should have a list of things you're going to be going over with the buyer, and then tell them, even after you close, I'm going to be making sure you're applying for your homestead. I'm going to making sure you should have a list of your after touches and tell them that you're going to contact them. And that gives you the right to contact them after, so that you can have them, so they remember you, so that you can sell their home. See, I mean, it's a great thing, guys. Everybody with me? Any questions? Is there anything that I left in your minds that you're wondering still? Is anybody? Yes.
I had a question that I had put in the chat.
Okay.
You've covered this, but I just said, like, let's say like the buyer's commission, or we get the seller to agree that they're going to pay a 2% commission.
Okay.
And then as a buyer's agent, you get your buyer to agree that you're going to get a 3% commission from them. So in total, it'd be 5%. Is that still possible?
No, it's not total. That would be 5%. What it says is the total is 3%. The buyer pays the difference. So if the seller is paying 2%, the buyer is then going to pay 1% to make the difference up to the total of 3%. You don't add together. So in the exclusive broker buyer agreement, let me share my screen and go there. It's right here. Yeah, let me just, that's a good question. Let's see, you're going to pay the difference. So if it's 3%, this is the total commission minus whatever the seller is paying. See, whatever the seller receives from whatever the broker receives from the seller, you subtract whatever you get from the seller from here. So if it's 3, you subtract the 2 you get from the seller. So the buyer only has to pay 1. If the seller gave you 3, then the buyer doesn't pay you anything. If the seller gives you 1, then the buyer pays you 2. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions I didn't hit in the chat? Let's see. I don't know. There's all these like weird. I'm the assistant of 100%. Our colleagues may not be cooperating with the same integrity. That's true, Michelle. Michelle, what else? You guys were back and forth in here. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we have to say that. Anybody else want to say anything or share anything? Come off of mute, join us. No, everyone's silent.
No, not yet.
Yes.
So, you said, I think you just mentioned something in your last response.
Yes.
So basically it only counts if in the MLS it says 0, right?
Correct.
1%. Let's say that the seller says, sure, I will offer 2% or 3%, then you don't have to worry about that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's only if the seller says they're paying nothing. That's when you're negotiating, but you could do a broker buyer agreement.
Until you
Right.
start selling houses, so get your buyer broker agreement.
Yeah, you should be doing your broker buyer agreements with everybody, guys. Practice, use them. I would say put the 3% in there. If they're offering 3%, you're good. If they're offering less, you know, it's up to, and by the way, you can say 3%, the seller offers 2%, and you can always say to the seller buyer, listen, I'll go with the 2%, and you can modify that agreement. I'm never going to say, no, you can't modify that. I don't care. You know, come to me, I'll make the modification with you and I'll initial it. This is really your business. I will work with you. This is to help you get used to it, help you to negotiate better. So if you want to write 3, they find a home that's 2 and you want to negotiate and say, listen, I'll stay with the 2. You can do that. I don't care. Don't feel like you can't. I'm going to be like, no, you will agree. We're going to get the, no, I don't care. Okay. So, but you should start using this because this is happening. November 14th, it's going in there. How many people are going to drop to 0? I don't know, but it is happening and we need to be the ones who are ready.
Current listings, they can't drop.
No, current listings are already on the books. They're ready in MLS. It's only everything's starting new as of November 14th. But again, I'm waiting. I'm on a special advisory group within the managing broker for Premier Sotheby's. So as soon as we have what we're doing, I will get to you with all that great stuff. But this is exactly what's happened. This is per everything with Aura and MLS. So I've given you all the latest and greatest Joanna Watkins, the updates from Stellar MLS. So that's everything that we have to date. As soon as I see anything from Florida Realtors come out on the new contracts, you know, I'll be trading on it. I'm again hoping that they say we can slap a lien on people's properties because that makes me happy, but I don't know.
Carrie,
Yes.
are you aware of any other MLS besides Stellar that is starting to do this?
Yes. Yes. I think actually Miami's doing it. I think the big ones all are.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Carrie-
the big reason is because it really cuts down the risk for other lawsuits to come out and say making it mandatory. Because if it's mandatory, then they take it out. And we don't want it to come out. We want it to be an option. Because as long as it's an option, then sellers can still offer it, right? But if they take it out, then sellers can offer it. And that's what we don't want to happen. So as long as we put it in there as an option, we think it keeps the risk away for them to take it out.
Carrie, what about relocation referrals for buyers? How is this gonna change now?
That's a great question. I mean, honestly, relocation referrals for buyers, we already know the commission, so that's not a problem. The bigger problem is, I mean, so we were always getting paid. Oh, that's true. We weren't getting paid from them. Oh, God. So that's a great
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Relocation.
Yeah, because I remember I got messed over really bad by one who walked away, and so now I'm
That's
gonna-
good, Elizabeth. Oh, I'm gonna have a long conversation with Alex. Ah,
that's what I was
good
wondering.
point. Yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, because we weren't allowed to do a broker buyer agreement with a relocation buyer.
That's right. Right.
Good point. To be continued. I will find out about that for you. See, all this is
Thank you.
still in the works. Yep, I'll find out for you. Mhm.
Thank you, Carrie.
Absolutely. Great question. I know. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Any other questions? That was really good questions, guys. Oh, Miss Tasha. Hello. I see you in your office. Anybody else? Hello,
Just-
John and I haven't seen you in forever. There you are. Anybody else?
I have a quick question, Carrie.
Jen.
Just to make sure that I'm clear on this.
Yeah.
So from today forward, any seller conversations that we have for new listings, we should automatically be just separating the two sides of the commission. Is that
Not
really
yet.
the difference?
Not yet. Not until November 14th. Starting November 14th. But yes, and November 14th, but wait till I will give you more direction from the PSER side. But yes, starting November 14th, that's when it becomes effective.
Okay.
I really am trying to give you a heads up to let you know. I want us to be first in the know. So my whole goal for you guys is the more you know ahead, the more education and clarity you have will give you calm. And hopefully you're not so panicked about it, because let's face it, all you hear in the news is negative, negative. Oh my God, NAR is falling apart. Oh my God, there's lawsuits. Oh my God, our industry is in the toilet bowl. And all of that is BS. First of all, this lawsuit probably will take years for it to come to finality. And we won against the Department of Justice. So people who don't even know what they're talking about, they're saying it's the Department of Justice. No, it's not. We won that lawsuit. This is a private lawsuit against a bunch of eager beaver money grubbing attorneys. Sorry, attorneys in the room. That's all it is. And and so that's what it's all about them getting their money, their payday, which they won a big payday, but it's not going to stop there. It's just going to continue. But unfortunately, it's not going to stop there. There's going to be a lot of copycat lawsuits and all this ridiculous thing. But the biggest problem is the false narrative for the buyers. And that's why all you can do out there to get the information about why buyers need representation. The information like, when do you make your money? When you buy. Why do you need an advisor helping you? Because if you're not seeing every home and having somebody who knows how to negotiate and having someone to help you through the contract, how are you going to get the most money on your largest investment? Right? I mean, the buyers need to understand that. Why would you want to put your largest investment in the hands of the listing agent who's representing the seller? right? Like these are things we need to be doing social media about. These are things we need to be getting out in front of the public. So I'm going to say to you, you guys really need to hit this hard, get every piece of information, go to the National Association of Realtors. They've got some good information out there. Put your own stuff out there. Really, I know those of you who hate social media, I'm sorry. You need to do it. We need to get this narrative out there because people don't understand it. It's very misunderstood right now, really misunderstood by really smart people, you know, and that's the most, and they need to understand why the National Association was created. The National Association of Realtors was created to protect people. The code of ethics is to protect the public, and it's to make sure that realtors are not acting unscrupulously. And so when they think, oh, it was a realtor who did it, how do you know? How do they know it was a realtor? They don't know. Like my father-in-law was talking about a situation was a realtor. How do you know it was a realtor? He doesn't know. And that's the problem. We need to be able to back up our own industry now more than ever. And we need to, because it's ourselves, it's our own reputation. So you guys, anything we can do about positive press right now, we have to focus on. Does that make sense? All right, guys. Well, everybody, if you haven't signed up for our Giving Thanks Luncheon, sign up. They're all over town. Come to anyone or everyone. Mondays, Dr. Phillips, Thursdays, Lake Nona, and Fridays, Ocala. So looking forward to seeing you all there. And I'm working on the Christmas party. It's probably going to be the first week of December. Where's it going to be? Somewhere fabulous. So I'll let you know, to be continued. So have a great rest of your day, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks.